"You've got a wedding to attend today, remember?" the nurse reminded David. "Yes, I remember," the man replied with a sigh. "I don't get it. Why would someone invite half a city of strangers to their own wedding?" David had no desire whatsoever to attend the celebration, but he was invited by the mayor himself, and thus skipping it wasn't an option. David Stattem was a dental surgeon, one of the best in the city, and even the state. His name was well known, therefore, he made it to the mayor's list of important guests. The celebration was held on the occasion of the third marriage in the life of William Graham, the new mayor. He came from another state with the goal to restore order in the city. There were rumors about his bad temper going around. By inviting all the important people in town to such a personal celebration, William Graham probably wanted to show off, as well as to establish contact with people in high circles. David was 40 years old. He had already been married and gotten divorced. As he described it, it was a common mistake. "I loved one woman, but married someone else." The man always got a lot of attention from women, so he didn't really mind being single. What David really wanted, however, was to have children. He was even considering adoption. Despite being well off, David was a simple and rather modest person. There were many people he knew at the celebration, so at least David had someone to talk to. Meanwhile, he didn't like the groom the least bit. The mayor was arrogant and annoying. The wedding seemed to be serving only one purpose: to let the groom show off his wealth, which was rather puzzling to David. That wasn't the right way to earn people's trust and respect. Sitting at the table, David turned around and saw the bride passing by. "Amber? How is that even possible?" "Amber," David called out to her, but the bride didn't turn around. "Amber!" He ran up to the woman and carefully looked into her eyes. "Oh my God, it's definitely her, but she was supposed to be dead." It happened many years ago when they were still students. He was a handsome young man from a wealthy family, and she was a pretty small-town woman, but that didn't stop her from winning David's heart. Their love was great and passionate. Just thinking about it, even so many years later, gave the man goosebumps. His parents didn't approve of their son's choice, but he didn't care. She was the woman he wanted to spend the rest of his life with. They decided to move in together, but on the eve of the move, they had a big fight. They had disagreements before, but they were both very stubborn, so neither one of them wanted to concede. Amber was also very emotional and short-tempered. Basically, the fight happened over something insignificant, but they were both waiting for the other person to initiate the reconciliation. Unfortunately, neither one of them did. One day, David saw Amber in the park with a young man. In retaliation, he asked another woman out on a date, since she'd been flirting with him for a while. Later, David found out that the young man in the park was Amber's brother, but it was too late. Amber couldn't forgive David. The man got married, but as one would expect, a marriage without love wasn't destined to last long. While still married, David learned that Amber had died. David was devastated by the news, but he couldn't attend the funeral. Over time, the man resigned himself to the fact that Amber was dead, and their love story was definitely over. And now, many years later, he saw her again. The woman looked inquiringly at David and said, "You must be mistaken. My name is Gloria." There wasn't even a hint of recognition in the woman's eyes. Catching up to the bride, David frantically tried to understand what was happening. "Wait, I'm sure it's you. Did something happen to you? Do you remember your past? I just want to know what's going on. I was told that you died." It all ended with the fact that William Graham's bodyguards threw the man out into the street. David couldn't sleep. He was haunted by what happened yesterday. He decided that he had to figure it all out no matter what. After learning where Gloria worked, he made an appointment with her assistant. Imagine the woman's surprise when she saw the strange guest from the wedding show up at her office. Before he said anything, he put a couple of photos of him and Amber on her desk. The woman's eyes widened because she saw herself in the old pictures. After a long pause, Gloria looked at David and said, "There's only one plausible explanation. This woman simply looks a lot like me." Gloria took some documents from her desk drawer and placed them in front of David. My name is Gloria Walters. I never went to medical school. I have a law degree. And I'm the only child in my family. David left Gloria's office with nothing. She looked exactly like Amber, but her disposition, her temperament, and her demeanor were completely different. The next morning, David woke up to the phone call from Gloria. The woman said that she had news and they needed to see each other, so they met in a cafe. David sat at the table across from Gloria and didn't take his eyes off her. He still loved her, whoever she was. After your visit, I couldn't calm down. I kept looking at the photo you left in my office. That night, I showed it to my mother. When she saw the photo, she burst into tears, and then she told me something shocking. As it turned out, my parents had twins. There were complications during labor, and my mother ended up in the ICU. There was a fire at the hospital that day, and after the evacuation, it turned out that my twin sister was missing. My father raised the alarm. Half the city was looking for the girl, but they never found her. Do you understand what that means? It means that I had a sister, and by the looks of it, it was Amber. Why did you marry him? Do you love him? David asked suddenly. Gloria clearly didn't expect such a personal question, so she was taken aback a bit. But she answered anyway. I don't know. He's strong and confident and determined. I feel like this was the kind of person I needed. Although I do have to admit that I didn't realize that he was also very controlling and mean. Gloria opened up, surprising herself. Amber's mother was a midwife. We need to find her, David shouted as if he had just remembered it. I'll call you tomorrow. The man quickly gathered his things and ran out of the cafe. David spent the rest of the day with a phone directory in his hands. The next day, David and Gloria met at the cafe again. I found out where Amber's mother works. We should go talk to her. I don't know if I can keep my emotions in check. After all, it looks like she kidnapped my sister. Gloria no longer seemed as cold and reserved as she did before. For some reason, she felt that she could be herself around David. Now she reminded him of Amber even more. Then you probably shouldn't come with me. We need to get more information first and then draw conclusions. No, I'm coming with you. I promise to stay calm. Miss Dawson, Amber's mother, recognized David immediately and greeted him with a smile. But as soon as she saw Gloria, the woman teared up, having understood everything without words. I worked as a midwife at the hospital where your mother gave birth. The woman began her story. Her whole body was covered in abrasions. It was obvious that her husband was beating her. She was crying all the time. Your father wanted a son, and when he found out that he would have twin girls, he was very unhappy. One day, I accidentally overheard her asking the doctor if she could give up one of the babies for adoption. But then there was that fire. There was a terrible commotion. I don't know what I was thinking. I guess I felt like I was helping your mother. I can't have children, so I took one of the babies. To my surprise, when your father found out about the missing child, he made the whole city look for her. I quit my job, sold my house, and moved away. I paid to get all the documents the baby needed. And Amber became my daughter. When she died, I realized that I deserved it. I deprived the child of her parents, then fate deprived me of my child. Meanwhile, it turned out that William Graham knew all about Gloria's meetings with David because he'd hired a man to follow his wife. Having accused Gloria of having an affair, the man beat her up. Despite his influential position, Gloria reported him to the police and filed for divorce. Gloria and her parents didn't press any charges against Amber's mother. Everyone admitted that they had made a lot of mistakes in their youth. Gloria and David quickly developed feelings for each other, but Gloria didn't want to rush into a relationship because she was afraid that David saw Amber in her and that Amber was the one that he loved. But David was sure that Amber remained in his past and Gloria was his future, and that his love was definitely directed at her and not her late sister. A year later, they got married and adopted a boy, just as David wanted. And then, 2 years later, Gloria gave birth to a baby girl. Who could have thought that David's presence at the mayor's wedding would end up changing so many lives?